Put on your helmets and buckle your chin straps for the wildest podcast held in the Steel City. Dubs and Chicken Hawk will give you a taste of the past in fried jumbo.
Hey, everybody. We are so thankful to have another episode here, bringing back Mr. Bill Priatko. Billy.
It's a pleasure.
We're blessed to have you. We wanted to bring you back here right before the holidays, talk about a couple different stories, mainly how you met your wife, Helen, and some things about Myron Cope and Kennywood Park and things like that. Things we didn't get to in the first couple episodes.
Sounds good.
So we definitely wanted to bring you back.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's like a nice bonding experience.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
I can't wait to see what we get, Bill.
You know, obviously I met Helen. Todd probably never met Helen, but
I have met your wife before.
You did?
Yeah.
Some of their grandchild.
Yeah, with your grandchild and my son played sports together. So
yes.
So she was a dear lady, and I wanted you to maybe spend some time telling us how you got to meet Helen.
Well, you know, my beloved Helen, I always called her that. She's passed away now back in 2014, but many people over the course of my lifetime always ask me, Bill, how did you and Helen get together? Because she went to Braddock High School, you went to North Braddock Scott, you were rivals.
Oh, really?
I said, yes, we were bitter rivals. And but I said it started in the right place. It started in church. Yeah. I said, I was 4 years old, and Helen was 3. And we both went to the same church in Braddock. It was called the Holy Resurrection Orthodox Church. And her dad and my dad were good friends.
Huh.
And they both worked together on the church committee when we'd come to church on Sunday. And my dad would sit me down in the last pew and set me down. And my dad was a very strict man of Ukrainian heritage. And he would say to me in Ukrainian, "Tehobuk." That means sit down and keep quiet.
It sounded serious.
When my dad said that, I sat down and kept quiet. And I mean, we looked straight ahead. We didn't look either way. But now Helen's dad would set her down next to me. He didn't have to tell her to sit and be quiet because she was normally that way. So in due time, even though I was always looking straight ahead, like my dad said, sit there and be quiet, I noticed this little blonde-haired girl to the left of me with ponytails that hit my fancy, so to speak, even at 4 years old.
Yeah,
she's 3, and I kept. And that's when I first met her.
Wow, that's amazing.
It started to blossom a little bit as time went on with our church activities and different things. And she went to Braddock High School, and I went to Scott. I was so wrapped up in playing football, basketball, and baseball. I just didn't have a real deep interest in going out on dates with girls. I want to concentrate on sports. That's the way I was.
Yeah, sure.
But Helen would keep asking me for different things, to go to a movie together, maybe go on a hayride between Braddock and North Braddock Scott High School. And I just never responded the way I should have. And my sister, Terry, who was a good friend of Helen, said to me one day, she said, Bill, Helen's going to ask you one more time to go out, and if you don't, that's it.
Oh, boy.
And I said, oh, wait a minute, that's like a pleasant threat.
Yeah, right.
So I finally came to my senses and said, maybe I should go out with her, and I did.
Oh,
and it started.
How old were you then when that happened?
And I was probably 16, 17, and then I was about ready to go to Pitt on a football scholarship. I knew then that she was the gal that I wanted to marry. And I told my mom that when I was at Pitt. She says, Billy, you're too young to get married. You don't want me to get married yet. So lo and behold, Helen waited for my, so to speak. We still went together for my 4 years at Pitt. Then I had a 3-year Air Force commitment, and I went in, and for 2.5 of those years, she still waited faithfully for me. Of course, we communicated, wrote all the time, and about close to my 3-year tour in the Air Force, I said, well, it's time to marry my gal.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And we got married.
Where did you get married? Back here?
We got married in Braddock. We
Braddock.
got married in the church where we met. And
Great
that is
story.
amazing.
we got married in 1957, and ironically, we were married for 57 years. Until Helen passed away from cancer. She was a wonderful wife, a wonderful mother for our 4 kids. And I always say she was a saint in my life. And I look to the day where we'll someday be together again.
Yeah.
So that's how I met my little Helen, the Braddock Tiger, I called her.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, you had some really great women in your life, right? From your mother to your wife. I mean,
Yes,
you had some.
yes.
You're a lucky man there for sure.
Yes, and my mom was same way, 29 years old when she lost her husband, our dad, and raised the 5 of us, and she did a wonderful job and was a great mother.
You're blessed.
Yes, I was blessed like my 4 brothers and sisters were, all of us.
I went to school with Kathy. And,
Yes.
what a lovely, lovely person.
Yeah, good people.
You know, I remember one time, I'll tell you a story about her. It was so embarrassing for me. I was at Pitt, okay.
You were at Pitt too, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, what happens, I went to Allegheny College first, played football, and
Yeah.
then I ended up transferring later to Pitt. Kind of got into a little trouble up there, but don't hold it against me at
No.
Allegheny College.
We all have sinned in life.
I was going to say. But when I remember one of my first memories of going to Pitt was I go into class. It was a public speaking class. And there's your daughter sitting there, Kathy.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, because
right?
she's a year younger than me. So she would have been a freshman. I would have been a sophomore at
Okay.
Pitt. Okay. And I was like, oh, this is great, because you got to know somebody from Norwin there.
Yep.
So it was very exciting. And Kathy was super smart, and I'm not. So I was like, yeah, she'll be able to help me, and I'll be able, we'll be able to work together. But I remember giving my first speech. And I think she helped me, if I remember right, we met somewhere, and she helped me get it put together and everything like that, because I, wasn't the greatest of students. And I got up there, and I choked like a dog.
Did you choke?
That's easy to do when you got to get up there.
When you're not used to it,
I remember
right?
I took speech at Pitt, and it wasn't easy. Yes.
Yeah, and I got overcome by anxiety
Sure.
and my nerves. You know
Yes.
what I mean? And I couldn't get the speech out.
Yes.
And I just remember this afterwards, I was humiliated, And Kathy got a hold of me afterward, and she's like, hey, this stuff happens. You got to relax.
Right.
She was so kind to me.
Yes.
And so thoughtful. And she's like, hey, next time you'll do way better. We'll practice or something. And, next one, I remember what I did my next speech on. And she said, you have to do a speech on something that you really care about doing. Because if you care about it, you won't get nervous.
Right.
Yes.
You
what I
know
mean?
it.
Yes.
You know it.
because you care about
Right.
it.
That's true. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I did one on, I'll still never forget it. Project Bundle Up was a brand new charity that had come out, and WTAE did, where they raised money for kids to put coats on them and things like that. And it was something I felt passionate about, and I called down there and got their mission and vision and all that.
Yeah.
And I did that speech, and I got an A on it. I went from F to A, and then I got A after that, and I ended up getting an A in that class. And a lot of it had to do with your daughter.
Kathy,
Kathy got me squared away.
That sounds like my Kathy. She always had that compassionate nature about her. And I think trying to help you came natural to her because she knew who you were too. And that's Kathy's nature to help.
Yeah, all your kids are like that,
Yeah, nice people.
Debbie, David, all those kids have been, Danny, have been nothing but thoughtful. And they take after you and Helen.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been blessed. I've had 4 great kids, believe me.
Yeah. All right. So one time you were telling us a story. You started on it about Myron Cope and a terrible towel.
Oh, yes.
And we never got through all that.
Yeah, we
because-
never got through a lot of yours last time you were here.
Well, that story on Myron and I were very close to each other. It was very good to me. I think it was because he had a son named Dan who was autistic, and he knew about my Dan, and he would always write to me and say he was praying for our Dan because he had a Dan, and Myron and I were close together in many respects. And this story, it's really a good one that involves Myron and involves my daughter Debbie. And it involves the Steelers Super Bowl out in Tempe, Arizona, back when we lost to the Dallas Cowboys out there.
Neil O'Donnell was quarterback.
Neil O'Donnell threw that pick at the end of the game and with a wide-open receiver.
Yep.
We should never have lost that game. So the bottom line was the next day, Monday after the game, and Debbie and I were flying back home, and we were at the Tempe airport, and lo and behold, who's sitting next to us but Myron. And the three of us were not in the, in a great mood because we had lost the day before, and any time the Steelers lose in a Super Bowl, as any Steeler fan knows, you got your dauber down a little bit.
Yeah.
So we were sitting there, and Myron was, hum-hawing like he does, and he said to Debbie and I, he said, I think the terrible towel has lost its effectiveness. He said, I think maybe I should do away with it. And Debbie looked at Myron. She says, Myron, no way. You can't do that. She says, did you see yesterday at the stadium the enthusiasm? First of all, before the game, they had a terrible towel that stretched from one end zone to the other. The big
Did they?
one.
Yeah,
And
giant
did
one.
you see all those fans waving that terrible towel? She said, the enthusiasm for the terrible towel will never go away.
Right.
It's such a vital part of the Steeler nation, Myron.
Yeah.
That's the way she said it. She says, you can't even begin to think about doing away with it. And he looked at everything and went, hum-haw, like he always said,
Yeah.
Well, it went like that. I didn't say anything else. The following day, I'm home. I'm driving down Route 30 here in Irwin, going toward Greensburg in the evening, and Myron had that 7 o'clock radio show on WTAE. Yep. And he got on, I have it on, driving down 30 toward Greensburg, and this is the way he said it. That voice, you can picture his voice of his.
Yeah.
He said, let me tell you folks something. He said, yesterday, I'm sitting with my pal, Bill Priatko, and his daughter, Debbie, at the airport at Tempe, and I said to Debbie, I thought the terrible towel has lost its effectiveness. And she corrected me in a very nice way, and she said, Myron, no, you can't even begin to think of that. The enthusiasm and everything that still relates to the terrible towel will live forever. It's part of Steeler Nation. You can't do that, Myron. And Myron says, Debbie's right. Hum-haw, he said. I will continue the terrible towel. The terrible towel will last forever.
Wow.
And that's the way he said it on his radio
So
show.
the Priatko saved the terrible
And
towel.
I said to Debbie when
Debbie.
I got home, and I said, Deb, you didn't hear Myron tonight, did you? She said, no. I said, well, he thanked you for saving the terrible towel.
Oh, that's great.
That's something.
So that's what happened.
And look at it now. I mean, it's
Yes.
just, it's from a Steelers fan, it's great to see. I'm going to use the word obnoxious because when they go to these other stadiums,
They try to imitate
they have
it.
to go, oh my gosh, this is obnoxious. How many people bring that top in our stadium and whip it around?
Yeah.
But it's awesome, right?
Oh, you go away if you're out of town somewhere.
Oh, my gosh.
I don't care where you're at.
Yeah.
There's more terrible towels in there than there are other people.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's,
You go to a Miami game, it's all Steeler fans.
yeah. And you've heard a lot of the Steelers, current Steelers, right? And it does have that energy that it creates.
Yes.
Drives right down to the
Yes.
players quite a bit.
Well, in essence, that when we were sitting with Myron there at the airport in Tempe, it kind of hurt to hear him say
Yeah,
that,
that would-
initially,
that would hurt.
because we were so used to all of us responding to the effectiveness of the terrible towel and how much it was part. We almost couldn't believe that Myron was giving so much thought to really doing away with it because he said it's losing its effectiveness. So it bothered us, but then we went up to our highest level again when he said it will last forever.
That's great.
And it has.
Oh, my.
And it's
And it still has,
Yeah,
And
there's
his
no doubt
spirit
about it.
is still there.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
He did that for his son, right? I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
to raise funds for his dad. That's why he always was, I think, so nice to me. Myron was at Pitt when I was playing at Pitt.
Okay.
Yeah, he was editor of the Pitt News, he was sports editor at Pitt News newspaper, and so we knew each other from way back. So he did initiate the terrible towel because of his son Dan.
Right.
Yes,
That's fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah, and that just adds to it, right? It's not just a trinket; it's something
Right,
with some
right.
meaning,
It
some
had
little
such.
deeper meaning.
It said had deep meaning.
Yeah.
And Myron knew that. He
great.
wasn't interested in the monetary aspect of it. He wanted to create something for the Steeler fans, and it has to this day. We know that it's still
it's
here.
fantastic.
Yeah, he was so much fun to listen to, that Myron.
I used to
unbelievably special.
leave my cottage on Sunday.
on radio.
Oh, yeah.
Steeler games and stuff.
Well, I used to always like when they'd say a little birdie told me or something, or some news item in the sports world, or somebody was going to get fired, or a new hire, or something related to sports. He would say a little birdie. Well, didn't hear that birdie on the windowsill out there.
But I used to, and I think I said this last time, I used to wait to leave my cottage. We'd go up for the weekend, and I'd wait till the game started. People would want to get home early to watch it because I would listen to him and Tunch on the way home. I enjoyed listening to him on the radio,
It's ironic that Myron wrote a book, and the title of the book was Double Yoy.
Yeah.
He'd always would say that.
Yoy and double yoy.
Yeah, Yoy and Double Yoy. So that was the name of his book, Double Yoy.
Great.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like a Pittsburgh
Icon,
legend.
man.
Yeah,
Legend.
icon, yeah.
When you knew him personally, he was such a wonderful guy.
Oh, that's nice to hear.
Yeah,
And I'm sure a lot of listeners want to hear that for sure.
yeah.
You had also told us a little bit about you being in a movie. I don't know where it was filmed, but it was Angels in the Outfield. And
Yes.
we didn't really get the.
That was something that came across my days at Pitt. That's where it occurred.
Okay.
I was a freshman at Pitt playing freshman football at that time. That we had our own freshman schedule. You couldn't play varsity. So it was the second semester in the spring of my freshman year. And I didn't know this, but MGM, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, I guess, came into Pittsburgh to film a baseball movie at Forbes Field, and they were going to call it Angels in the Outfield. We'd heard about it, but never in a million years did I think, not long after that, I was going to be the Pirate center fielder.
How did this come about?
How that occurred, our athletic director called, ironically, he was a Scott High teammate of mine, Joe Picard, and Joe was a catcher on the Pitt baseball team, and I was playing football. I hadn't played baseball since high school, but the athletic director said, a gentleman from MGM come over here to the school, and he said, can we use two of your athletes to be in our movie? And so the athletic director said, why, certainly, I have two young men I think that would fit the bill. And I was honored when he called us in and told us to report in a couple of days to Forbes Field, and it would be a 2-week, we filmed for 2 weeks.
Wow.
At Forbes Field. So legitimate baseball players, they were all from, at that time in Pittsburgh, they had what they called, I think, the Greater Pittsburgh Baseball League or something. These guys were like semi-pros.
Right.
They were good. And they picked 7 of them, and Joe and I to be the other 2 as the 9 players. And they said Joe was the catcher, and I'm the center fielder. I said, gee,
Jeez.
and our manager, he was a movie star, Paul Douglas was his name, and Janet Lee was the female.
Janet Lee.
Janet Lee.
Wow.
She was the female star in the movie. And of course, we got to meet both of them every day. They'd be there for filming. We'd sit there, and Paul Douglas would come in, and we'd be sitting in the dugout, the 9 of us. He'd always have something to say to us to start the morning off. And then we'd always talk with Janet Lee. She was going steady then with a guy named Tony Curtis. He was a movie star.
Sure,
Yeah.
He would come there sometime to see her, and they would be talking together on the third base seats. But anyway, I said, I couldn't believe this. Here I am, a center fielder, for the Pirates in this movie, and they filmed us in different shots. They filmed me and fielding a ground ball that I was supposed to catch, and it was a base hit and throw it to third base, and they're going to call the guy out at third. And this was a funny thing. When you watch them film it, it's different when you see it in the movie. They splice it together. And but the way they did it, they hit the line drive with a fungo bat that looked like in a movie that was the hitter hitting it. And the line drive came out to me. And I'm a center fielder, and it was a pretty good shot. And I thought I was going to get it on the first hop. But it stuck to the ground and rolled and went between my legs. Hey, son, he said, catch the ball. This is costing us money. So they run it again. They ran it again a second time, and I was okay. I got it and showed him. But that was an episode that I wasn't real proud of. Thank heaven that wasn't in the movie. But there was one scene, Lenny Levy, he was a Pirate coach at the time. He was actually a Pittsburgh Pirate coach. And he and I, Bruce Bennett, who was the movie star pitcher, throws the last pitch to win the pennant. And Lenny and I were supposed to go out and put him on our shoulders and carry him to the dugout where the manager, pumps him up about how we just won the pennant. And so they poured fake sweat on Lenny and I,
Yeah.
So we ran it. We ran out on, and he was a big guy, Bruce Bennett, and we carried it. And he said, "Run it again, run it." We ran it about 4 times, and Lenny said, "What did they put fake sweat on us for? We didn't need fake
you're really
sweat. We're sweating." So we never forgot that, and that part was in the movie. You could see it where we carried him.
I gotta check his movie.
Yeah, we gotta check the flick out.
And,
Angels and I've heard of it.
Some of the things that we thought would really be up close wasn't. That's the way movies end. We were from a distance, but we knew it was us.
Yeah.
And then the 9 of us sitting in a dugout with Paul Douglas as the manager talking to us. That was on the front cover of the DVD that they made. They gave us one of those. I still haven't watched it yet. But that was my exposure to working for MGM.
Wow.
And being the center fielder for the Pirates in that movie, Angels in the Outfield. And I said it was a heck of an experience.
So you can say you played for the Steelers and the Pirates.
And I always kidded about that. I said I was a center fielder for the Pirates the year they won that mock pennant.
I wish I would have been able to see Forbes Field.
I know it. The pictures of Forbes Field are really cool.
Yeah.
It was around for a long time, like 70 years or something.
Well, that's
How
when I
long
was a Steeler. That's where we played.
Yeah.
We played at Forbes Field. Yeah.
We went to Pitt, Kathy and I. It was the Forbes Quadrangle. Was like the place that they built a library there, and they built the Quadrangle where Forbes Field was. And they have they still have the home plate.
Right, where Mavs hit the home run. From right there, right?
Yeah, they have the home plate where it always was.
And part of the wall, I think. Where
the wall's out there up on the road that goes around.
I recall the Pirates were good to Steeler players in those days because when I was with the Steelers then, the Pirates gave us season pass for the whole season.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, they gave us a season pass for the whole year. Each Steeler player that year,
That's nice.
That was nice of them. Mm-hmm.
So back in those days, Pitt's baseball or football stadium up there on the hill? Yes, too. Yeah.
Pitt, we played at Pitt Stadium. Yeah,
too.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you had that up on the hill.
Yeah, but Steelers we played at Forbes Field.
Forbes Field. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see how long it was around. It was around a long time.
Yeah. You also mentioned
1909 to 1970.
Yeah,
61 years.
Yeah, that's when they built Three Rivers.
61 years.
Yeah.
Well, you don't get 61 years out of a stadium anymore. I mean, that thing was big.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, Three Rivers went in like early 70s.
Yeah,
right?
71, I guess, was the first year, and they won a
Forbes
series.
Field was a legendary place, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
61 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Taxpayers don't get the stadiums to last that long anymore.
No, they want to build new ones after 6-7 years.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Speaking of legendary places, you spoke once to us about a legendary play that you were involved in. You spoke with the Valley
Dispatch.
Well, who was it? Valley Independent?
Valley Independent newspaper, yes.
Yeah, about your favorite play.
Not long ago, I had a call from this gentleman. He said he was a writer with the Valley Independent up in Monessen. He said, "Bill, I want to write a story about you." I said, "What's this all about?" He said, "Well," he said, you played at Pitt. You played for the Steelers. We understand the oldest living Steeler alumni and all that. And
Yeah.
he said, so we want to write a story about it. And he wrote a 2-part story. And it was in 2 different days, a real big one. And one of the things he asked me, he said, Bill, everybody that's played has either a favorite play or a favorite game. I said, well, it's funny you say that, because I said, yes, I do. I said, a lot of people won't even remember it. I said, because it happened in 1957, that's a long time ago, and the significance of what it was is probably not even known today, but it was to Pat Livingston, who was the sports editor for the Pittsburgh Press, because he covered this particular game, and he wrote about it the next day, Monday, because we played on Sunday. And I said what it was, we were playing the last game of the year against the Chicago Cardinals. They were then in Chicago. You know, they moved all over. They went out to Arizona.
Now,
St. Louis for a while.
Yeah.
So they were known then as the Chicago Cardinals, and they played in Comiskey Park. So we were going out. It was the last game of the year. We're going to play them in Comiskey Park. And in those days, whoever was designated as the best defensive team in the league, they had one category. Today, they've got numerous categories. You know, so many first downs, runs, everything, about 8, 9 categories. In those days, they had one category, and that whoever had the best defense in the NFL depended on who gave up the least number of yards. That's who was the best defensive team.
Right.
Well, we're going into that Cardinal game. We're nip and tuck with the Cleveland Browns. We're real close in yardage. They're going to play the New York Giants that last game, and we're going to play the Cardinals. Now, when we played the game out there, the Brown game had already been played. The Browns won the game, and now they were going to play for the NFL title, but they gave up 390 yards.
Oh, boy.
And in that Giant game. And we knew that, and we said maybe we have a shot to be the best defense in the league if we have a good game here against the Cardinals. Well, lo and behold, we did. We beat them, I think it was 23-6. And we held them to, I don't know, it was maybe total runs and passes, maybe 60 or 70 yards.
Holy smokes.
So we
Smothered them.
We were thinking, we didn't know, what the total was till after the game. But the play that occurred that affected the situation and affected me in a way, it was in the fourth quarter. It was 2nd down and 7. I can remember it. We're in our defensive huddle. Dale Dodrell, who was our defensive captain, our middle linebacker, he called the defense, and we're ready to break huddle. And the last thing he said to me, he said, Bill, he said, look for Madsen on a deep reverse. And so we lined up, and I looked at the offensive set, and there's only Madsen flanked over to the right. That's the set they use when he'd run the deep reverse to the left. I'm a left side linebacker. George Tarasovic was our defensive end on that side, and I hollered to him quickly. I said, he might come this way. Get ready. Well, lo and behold, Lamar McCann was the quarterback. He takes the snap, and lo and behold, he's pitching to Ollie Madsen coming around on a deep reverse.
Right.
And thanks to Dale Dodrell's tip, I shot the gap, and I hit him for a 12-yard loss.
Wow.
That's neat.
And I didn't think anything of it other than it felt good to hit him for a loss, and that was it. We won the game. We're flying back. Buddy Parker, the head coach, was sitting in front of me in the back of the plane, and somebody come back and they hollered and they said, we just beat out the Browns, I think by 12 or 14 yards, and they said it was Bill's 12-yard loss that did it.
Wow, that's
We-
great.
Can you imagine that?
And I couldn't believe it.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
I said, we're the best defense in the league, and it depend on that play. And nobody knew it. The next day, Pat Livingston wrote about it in the press, and the only thing I liked about what he said I was from North Braddock.
Nice. That's great. Hometown
He
kid,
said,
right?
Pitt's linebacker, Cedar linebacker from North Braddock had a great day at Comiskey Park yesterday or something, this and that. And so he mentions me hitting Ollie Madsen for that 12-yard loss, which gave us the title.
Wow.
And I sold this reporter, the guy from the Valley Independent. I said, that's my story. But I said, nobody will remember it. I said, but it gave me, at that time, a lot of personal satisfaction. Sure. And it's my greatest claim to fame, wearing the black and gold.
Wow.
I mean, that's I wasn't a long-time player or all-pro or this or that. But I said that that 12-yard loss on Ollie Matson was something that I always relished.
Remember forever, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. Who was the quarterback the Steelers then?
Earl Morrow was our quarterback. Our three quarterbacks.
57.
Earl Morrow was number 1. Lenny Dawson was number 2. And Jack Kemp was number 3.
Like 2 Hall of Famers.
Jack Kemp wasn't he a senator or something?
Jack Kemp became a congressman.
Congressman, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and he was instrumental in getting our David to West Point.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's great.
Because he and I were teammates, and I wrote him when David applied, and I said, Jack, if you can, he was a congressman then, and he said, Bill, I'd be glad to. He wrote a nice letter for David, and it helped David get to West Point. But he was our number 3 quarterback. Earl Morrow played 19 years.
19 years.
Yeah, and Buddy Parker let all 3 of them go.
Now, who was the quarterback of the Giants?
Lenny Dawson's now in the Pro Football Hall of
Fame. Dawson's in the Hall of
Fame. Kemp won 2 championships up in Buffalo.
Yeah.
But Parker got rid of all 3 of them.
That's why we weren't winning much then, right?
It was a tough business, believe me. Still is. Still is.
Yeah.
Who was Jim Brown at the Browns then?
Jim Brown was with the Browns. I always said, I didn't know this. Maybe you might remember this. It was not long ago, a few months ago, I guess. I got a call at home here, at my home in North Huntington, and the guy said, Bill, I'm from Channel 4. He said, can we come out and interview you this afternoon? I didn't know what it was all about. I said, well, what the heck? What's going on? What for what? He said, well, Jimmy Brown just died this morning. When you guys were teammates at Cleveland, weren't you? And I said, yeah. He said, well, we'd like to interview you. And so he did. He came out. I guess the neighbors were wondering, this big Channel 4 truck in front of our house. I said, what happened? What's going on in our house? You know, he said it'll be on the 6 o'clock, 11 o'clock news today, and it was. Yeah. But I had to be careful what I said because Jimmy wasn't always compatible with Paul Brown, you know, in his coaching. And so I had to say all the nice things about Jimmy. I thought he was the best at that time. I said, I don't know if anybody was better than him.
Nobody even close.
And so I said I was blessed to have been his teammate and also played against him when I'm with the Steelers. So I said I remember Jimmy Brown very, very well, very well. You know, he did interview me, and they put it on the Channel 4 News, which I didn't know when he called me that Jimmy Brown had died. I had no awareness of it.
He's one of those guys, when you look back at those films, you could see him still being able to play in today's game.
Oh.
He was such a big, strong man.
We had a play at Cleveland called the 38 toss. It was a 3-back to the 8-hole outside. Mm-hmm. It averaged 12 yards a carry.
That's crazy.
That was him.
That was him.
Yeah.
And they knew, everybody we played against knew it was coming. I mean, they used to holler out. The secondary and the linebackers would holler, 38, here it comes, 38, but they still couldn't stop it.
No.
He was he's like an antelope. He just
man among boys, that guy.
He could run. He had speed. He had agility. He had strength for a big guy. But I never forgot that play averaged 12 yards a carry. Wow! And
what kind of set did you run out of then? Would you have a fullback or two? Would you have 2 backs, 3 backs?
Two backs.
2 backs.
Our 2 backs. Our 2 backs at Cleveland was Jimmy Brown and Bobby Mitchell. Mitchell could
big
run.
Big time player.
Yeah, and at Pittsburgh we used two backs. We had Fran Rogel and Billy Wells. Wells was a halfback and Fran was the fullback.
Yeah.
See, Chuck Noll was smart. See, I don't know why they don't use a 2-back offense.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if the Steelers...
I told you, some of them do. They'll bring in a tight end
every now and then. If the Steelers used Harris and Warren today in the same backfield, that'd be twice as effective. Because I like Warren. I think Warren's our best running back, the Steelers.
I just think when you have a fullback, you can get better blocking angle.
Yeah, opens that hole quicker.
You know,
well, Noll, he had Franco and Rocky Ballard.
Yeah. And because sometimes when you're on the line, you have to you can't. You have to almost run backwards when you're pulling. You have to kind of lose some ground, and then
I mean, when you're playing defensive back or linebacker, and I can vouch for that, and you look back there, and there's only one setback. There's only so many things you can do with one, but you got two setbacks. You know,
there's counters, and everything.
There's so much more you can do that you got to think about what they're going to do.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes these teams today that revert to a two-back backfield, they're smart.
Right. Right.
But everybody uses that shotgun now with the quarterback back there, and
Dallas started. Yeah.
Run the pass option. I don't like it as much.
You know, something about Jim Brown. My uncle, my great uncle George, who you know.
Yeah.
Cousin Eddie's dad. He's from Cleveland. Well, he was originally from Export. They all moved to Cleveland. I never got to see Jim Brown, but he would always, when the Steelers start winning, he'd always go, they're still not as good as Jim Brown. He's still the best ever, blah, blah, blah. And I'll tell you, he's about your age right now. And if you bring Jim Brown up, his eyes light up. You know, I mean, he must have been that amazing.
I thought he was the best. I said that when the man interviewed me from Channel 4. I said, I don't know of anybody, at least at that time, and maybe even today, that was any better than him.
Right, very few.
He was a great runner.
Oh, you got to play and coach, and you had some great coaches and some unbelievable historical names you played with.
Paul Brown probably said it best, and that's probably why Jimmy was not very warm toward Paul Brown. We used to have a blocking drill at practice where the fullback would pick up a blitzing linebacker.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
We'd put three linebackers up. It was Walter Michaels, myself, and Vince Costello, the three of us. And the fullback would block, but he wouldn't know who's coming.
Right.
You know, that's the way it is in the game.
Yeah, it is.
You don't know. Yeah.
So we'd be running that drill, and we'd take turns, the three of us, on who's going, and then they alternated Jimmy with the second fullback to block us. Well, I never forgot this because I come in, it was my turn, and I just ran right in. I knocked him right on his can, being honest. And Paul Brown, he stared at Jimmy Brown. He said, "You know what, Jim?" I can still hear his voice. He said, "You either can't block or you don't want to block." Oh, you could see Jimmy Brown then. He just mumbled under his breath. He said, "I'm paid to run." That's all he said, you know. But he was right.
Yeah.
I don't know whether Jimmy couldn't block or he didn't want to, because he could never handle this blocking drill. No matter which one of us blitzed,
couldn't pick it up.
We didn't have a problem.
Yeah.
But he could run, and that's what he said. I get paid to run.
You know, when you were mentioning about having a fullback in the backfield, you see that today a lot. A lot of those. They'll have a hole, and there's a linebacker waiting in the gap, and there's nobody to block him. And the running back has nobody. You know, if there was a fullback, he could take on that linebacker, and then they can make a move off it. But right now,
Franco Harris. Yeah, we all know the Immaculate Reception. Franco, we all miss him. I'm not kidding you. He, what a man. We invited him in July of the year he died, in December, to speak to, I get these coaches together, about 15 high school coaches.
Yeah.
And we meet up at the Grandview Golf Course Restaurant in North Braddock every year. We did it for about 10 years. Mike White used to come all the time from the Post and he'd write about it.
Yeah.
So Franco said to me one day, he said, "Bill, can I come to that get-together you guys?" I said, "Franco, you kidding? Can you come?"
Yeah.
He said, "Those guys are legends." I said, "Franco, you're a legend. They'd love to have you." He did. So he came. He gave everybody, 15 coaches, his Immaculate Reception T-shirt, everybody, you know.
Oh, nice.
And he described things that probably he may have never said publicly, because these guys were all coaches, and he respected them. They were like little kids sitting at the end of their chair listening to Franco.
Right.
And Franco, and the only reason I'm bringing this up, he brought up the play. He said, I was supposed to block. He said, I'm supposed to set up and block. He said, I set up and I look around and there's nobody to block. Everybody's doing a pretty good job up front as far as the offensive line. And he said, I don't have anybody to pick up. So I looked around and I looked back and he said, Terry's running all over the place.
Yeah, he was back and forth,
yeah,
back and forth. Yeah.
I looked back and he's running. And he said, the thing that I said to myself right away, Joe Paterno used to tell us, go to the ball, run to the ball. He always preached that to us. He said, that's where the action is. Go to the ball. So Franco says, I'm going to head for the ball because I don't have anybody to block.
Right.
Like you were saying, fullback usually blocks. And he said, so I released, and I figured I want to head for the ball, and I see the ball's heading for Frenchie. He said, the next thing I know it, I'm catching it.
Wow.
He said, it happened so fast. He said, I will tell you. He said, it did not hit the ground. No, he said, that ball did not.
Yeah, he'd be honest about it later.
He said, it did not hit the ground.
Right.
He said, I caught it, and he said, I'll be honest, I don't remember anything after that except I'm in the end zone.
Yeah.
He said, he couldn't believe it. He said, I'm running, but I can't remember me running. That's what he said.
Fundamentals from Joe Pa, huh?
Yeah.
Fundamentals from Joe Pa.
And he said, the next thing I know, the place is going wild, And the thing that I didn't know about that play, Debbie and I, when Franco died, they still held the dinner for him, the Immaculate Reception dinner. His wife, Dana, said she's still going to hold it. It was
nice.
Took a lot of character and gumption on her part, just losing Franco. So he held it. Was on a Friday night before the Steeler-Oakland game they were going to play. Not Oakland now, they call them something different, but the old Oakland Raiders. So anyway, I'm sitting with at the table with a guy named Barry Pearson. You may not remember that name.
Mm-mm. Rings a bell.
And he's sitting there with his wife. And I said, you say you're Barry Pearson? He said, yeah. As you were on the Immaculate Reception team, the day it happened, he said, yep. He said, can I tell you something? He said, you were with the Steelers. I said, yeah. I said, I told him a little bit and this and that. He said, well, I can tell you some things. And I never knew this. He said, I'm on the sideline. He said, I never played a play all year other than special teams,
right?
Offensively.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He said, Chuck Noll says to me, go in and tell Terry to run the square end to you. He said, I couldn't believe it. And I never knew this.
On the Immaculate Reception?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
On that play.
Wow.
He said, Chuck tells you, he says, go on in and tell Terry to run now it was like fourth down and about 10 or 12.
Yeah, it was a bunch,
what I mean? And he's going to run about a 15-yard square in to get the first down.
Get
That's
past
what
the
they were
sticks,
doing.
yeah.
Right.
And he said, when Chuck told me to go in, he said, I got to go in. But he said, I haven't played all year.
Oh, wow.
And he's telling us the story.
I'd be a nervous wreck.
Gee, man.
He's telling Debbie and I the story. And I said, Chuck told you to go in, Barry. And he said, yeah. He said, he told me to tell Terry to run the 15-yard square in. And he said, I did. I told Terry. And he said, I ran it. He said, I'm open. But he said, Terry didn't think I ran it deep enough. I wasn't going to get the first down. He thought I only squared in about 10 yards.
Oh.
And he said, I really squared in about 17.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm thinking, I said, hey, man, I better catch it,
Yeah. I'm wide open,
and he said, Terry's back there running around, and I'm saying he's going to throw it to me. I'm open. But he said he throws it to Frenchie.
Wow.
It wasn't open. Yeah, he wasn't open.
He says he doesn't throw it to me. And I said to Barry, I said, you just told me something. I said, not only I don't know, I said, but 99% of the people don't know. I said, I just had to be sitting next to you here at Franco's dinner. And when he told us that, and I said, what the heck would have happened if he would have thrown it to you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They would have got the first down and had a long field goal.
Yeah. Right. It would have changed the course of history for the NFL, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Franco would have never been involved in that play.
Wow.
And but when he told us that story, Debbie and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, me telling you this story right now is going to make a lot of people aware of something that they never knew. And I didn't know.
Right.
Next time on Fried Jumbo.
Yeah, the rule was different in those days. Yeah,
So
yeah.
If it went off the defender last, and then if an offensive player caught it, it wouldn't be called that way, right?
Yeah.
It would be an incomplete
Yeah, if it
pass.
bounced off of Frenchie, it was an illegal throw.
Off your offensive player to another offensive
Yeah.
player.
Yeah.